There's one hidden cause of suffering that most people never notice. We spend our days running, chasing, grasping at things we hope will bring relief, yet in the quiet moments when no one is watching, an emptiness remains. That emptiness whispers questions we do not want to hear. What am I searching for? Why does life feel heavy even when I get what I want? I know the feeling of lying awake at night, your mind racing with worries that never stop. You try to silence them with entertainment, with work, with busyness, yet the silence always returns. It is in that silence that suffering shows its face, and it is in that silence that the hidden jewel of peace can also be found. Life contains suffering. This truth is not a punishment. It is simply the nature of existence. The things we love slip away. The things we fear arrive, whether we want them to or not. Every pleasure fades. Every achievement loses its shine. We resist this flow, and in our resistance we suffer. Imagine holding onto a rope as a river pulls it from your hands. The tighter you grip, the more your skin burns. You could release it and let the current carry you, but fear whispers that letting go means drowning. So you grip harder, and the pain grows sharper. This is the struggle we live each day. When we refuse to accept the changing nature of life, we bleed from the rope of reality. The pain of this truth cannot be denied. It shows up in the woman who spends her whole life climbing the ladder of success, only to feel hollow when she reaches the top. It shows up in the man who pours himself into a relationship, terrified of losing it, and smothers the very love he longs to protect. It shows up in the child who holds on to a broken toy, crying because the joy it once gave has already passed. Suffering is woven into the fabric of life because everything is fleeting and we do not want it to be. Craving is the spark that sets the fire. We crave pleasure, comfort, recognition. We crave certainty, security, control. We crave things to be other than they are. But each craving is like drinking salt water. The more we consume, the thirstier we become. We chase illusions, mirages shimmering on the horizon. And when we arrive, we realize the water was never there. Yet still, we run toward the next shimmer. Think of the countless times you have said, "If I just had this one thing, then I would be happy." A new job, a new house, a new partner, a new version of yourself. And perhaps for a short while you did feel happy. But the joy faded and you found yourself searching again. Like a hamster in a wheel, you run endlessly, believing the next step will be the one that sets you free. The truth is both painful and liberating. Suffering has a cause, and it also has an end. To awaken to reality is to see that craving is the chain, not life itself. When craving dissolves, peace naturally arises. It is like the sun breaking through the clouds. The sun was always there, but the storm of desire covered it. We are not broken. We are only clouded. When the craving softens, when we stop clinging, the sky of the heart clears. There is nothing to add, nothing to become, nothing to chase. There is only this moment, and in this moment, there can be freedom. The path to this freedom has been walked for centuries. It is called the middle way. It is not the extreme of indulgence, nor the extreme of denial, but a balanced way of living, with clarity and compassion. The middle way is walked through 8 steps, each one a friend guiding us home. Right view teaches us to see life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Right intention helps us act from kindness instead of fear. Right speech reminds us that words can wound or heal, and urges us to choose the latter. Right action guides our hands to do what brings peace, not harm. Right livelihood asks us to earn a living in ways that respect life. Right effort is the steady flame that keeps us moving forward. Right mindfulness trains us to be here, fully, without drifting into past or future. Right concentration gathers the scattered mind into stillness where wisdom blooms. These are not commandments carved in stone. They are practices, invitations to return again and again to presence. Imagine them as steps across a river. Each one carries you closer to the far shore of peace. You may stumble, you may slip, but as long as you rise and take another step, the shore remains in sight. Let us not be deceived. Walking this path does not erase all pain. Life will still bring loss, still bring change. But the suffering, the burning rope in your hands, begins to ease. You learn to let go, to move with the river rather than against. And in that flow, the jewel within you begins to shine. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. Your pain, too, can turn into light. And the light grows brighter when we see that life is not a solitary battle, but a vast web where all threads meet. Nothing exists alone. Every breath you take is the gift of countless trees, oceans, winds, and generations before you. The food on your table carries the labor of unseen hands, the warmth of the sun, the patience of the earth. The pain you feel is shared by millions, woven into a tapestry of humanity. And the love you give ripples outward, touching lives you will never know. When I was a child, I watched my father lose everything he worked for. I remember the silence at the dinner table, the way his shoulders sank under the weight of invisible burdens. At first, I thought our suffering was ours alone, that fate had singled us out. But as I grew older, I began to see the truth. Every family carries its own silent storms. Some are visible, like bankruptcy or illness. Others remain hidden, like loneliness, resentment, or unspoken grief. Nothing exists alone. We are all caught in the same web of life, where each thread pulls on another. Imagine a spider's web shimmering with morning dew. Touch one strand, and the whole web trembles. In the same way, every choice we make ripples outward, touching lives far beyond our sight. The anger you release on a stranger may harden their heart, which may then spill into another conflict. The kindness you offer to a friend may ease their pain, which may then soften their words to someone else. The web never ends, and neither do the consequences of our actions. This interconnection can feel overwhelming at first. If everything touches everything, then we are drowning in responsibility. But this is not a burden. It is a doorway to compassion. When we see that others are shaped by conditions beyond their control, our judgments soften. The person who cut you off in traffic may be rushing to the hospital. The co-worker who snaps at you may be carrying a grief too heavy to name. The stranger who seems cold may have never been shown warmth. Seeing this truth is like stepping into another's skin. It humbles the heart. It reminds us that just as we are pulled by the threads of life, so is everyone else. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It does not choose the rain, the sunlight, or the season. It grows because of countless forces that align. And when it blooms, its fragrance carries far beyond itself. We too are seeds, shaped by family, culture, history, and the turning of time. To awaken to this truth is to awaken to compassion. To know that your suffering is not yours alone is to realize that healing is never solitary. Each breath of understanding you take helps the whole web breathe easier. Yet the illusion of separation is stubborn. We cling to the idea of a solid, independent self. We say, "This is me. This is who I am. This is mine." But look closely, and the self begins to dissolve. Like mist under the sun, the body you call mine changes every moment, cells dying and renewing, hair graying, skin wrinkling. The mind you call me shifts like clouds. Thoughts appear, linger, and fade. The emotions you cling to, whether pride or shame, rise and fall like waves. The self is not a rock, but a river. It flows endlessly, never the same from one moment to the next. Realizing this is both frightening and liberating. Frightening because we lose the ground we thought we stood on. Liberating because we are no longer trapped by our past, our mistakes, or even our name. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones labeled with all your regrets, fears, and identities. To see the illusion of self is to set the backpack down. Suddenly, you are lighter. Suddenly, you are free to move. This freedom extends not just to yourself, but to everyone. When we stop clinging to the rigid idea of who we are, we also stop imprisoning others in fixed identities. The person who hurt you is not only their mistake. The person you envy is not only their success. We are all rivers, flowing, changing, carrying silt and sparkle alike. To see this is to meet others not as frozen statues, but as living streams. Life itself reveals this truth again and again. Everything flows. Nothing stands still. You cannot step into the same river twice, because both you and the river have already changed. The problem is not change. The problem is our refusal to accept it. We grip the rope of permanence, and it burns us. A parent holds on to the memory of their child as a toddler, unable to accept that the teenager before them has grown. A worker clings to the stability of a job, terrified when the winds of change sweep it away. A lover holds on to yesterday's intimacy, blind to the truth that love, too, must evolve or wither. But when we open our hands, when we accept impermanence, we discover a strange peace. The falling leaf is not the death of the tree, but part of its renewal. The ending of a chapter is not the end of the story, but the space where a new one can begin. When we learn to trust this flow, fear loosens its grip. Life is not a storm meant to be conquered, but an ocean meant to be sailed. Even sorrow becomes softer when we allow it to pass through us. Like waves, emotions rise, crash, and retreat. Resistance is what drowns us. Acceptance is what keeps us afloat. Letting go of resistance does not mean apathy. It means moving with the current instead of against it. It means learning to dance with change, improvising with grace. Picture trying to grasp water with a clenched fist. No matter how hard you squeeze, it slips away. But if you open your hand, the water flows gently through your palm. Life is like this. Control is an illusion, and clinging to it only brings tension. True strength is not mastering the ocean, but learning to move with its tides. This surrender is not weakness. It is trust. Trust that the same flow that carried you through yesterday will carry you through tomorrow. Trust that even when the waves rise high, the ocean itself remains vast and steady. Trust that in letting go, you do not lose, but gain freedom. Our thoughts we make the world. This is not poetry. It is reality. The mind is not just a mirror reflecting what exists. It is the artist painting the canvas of experience. A bitter thought can turn a sunny day gray. A kind thought can turn a gray day golden. Imagine walking through a crowded street. If your mind is full of anger, every face becomes an enemy. If your mind is full of gratitude, every face becomes a companion. The outer world remains the same, but your inner lens reshapes it completely. To master the mind is to master the world. Yet most of us let our minds run wild, dragging us from fear to desire, from past to future. We live as if chained to a restless horse, pulled in every direction. Mindfulness is the key to loosening the reins. It is the art of observing without judgment, like watching clouds drift across the sky. Thoughts come and go, but you need not chase them. Emotions rise and fall, but you need not drown in them. With each moment of awareness, you remember, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am the sky in which they appear. In this spaciousness, choice is born. Instead of reacting from old habits, you can respond with presence. Instead of feeding anger, you can water kindness. Instead of fearing change, you can rest in trust. And when you live this way, the world itself begins to change. There was once a man chased by two tigers, clinging to a vine over a cliff. Below him waited another tiger. On the vine, two mice began to gnaw. Certain of death, he noticed a drop of honey glistening on a leaf. He leaned forward and tasted it. In that single moment, the sweetness was real. This story is not about denial. It is about presence. Life is fragile, uncertain, filled with tigers and mice. But there is also honey. To taste it, you must be here, now. To live is not to escape danger, but to awaken to the sweetness that exists even amidst it. Maybe, the farmer said when his horse ran away. Maybe, he said, when it returned with more horses. Maybe, he said, when his son broke his leg. Maybe, he said, when that broken leg saved his son from being taken to war. Life is not fixed as good or bad. It is fluid, shifting, unpredictable. Our labels create suffering. Our openness dissolves it. Non-dual awareness is this openness. It is the ability to see the whole, beyond division, beyond success and failure, beyond gain and loss, beyond me and you. It is not philosophy. It is direct experience. It is sitting quietly and noticing that the world is already whole. That separation is a story we tell. In this awareness, the heart relaxes. The walls between us crumble. We are no longer fragments, but part of a living, breathing whole. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, are you holding on to something that's destroying you? People say, anger makes you strong. I say it makes you weaker than ever. Anger burns hot, but it leaves only ashes. It feels like power in the moment, like fire blazing in your chest. But what does it leave behind? Broken relationships, regret, exhaustion. And yet anger is only one thread in the vast web of life that binds us all. Nothing exists alone. Every feeling, every reaction, every word spoken has roots in countless causes before it. When you shout at a stranger, you are not only releasing your own frustration, you are echoing the voices of ancestors, the weight of culture, the stress of a society that shaped you. And that stranger, too, is carrying burdens you will never see. Life is a vast net, each knot tied to another. We think we act alone, but in truth, we are like waves on the same sea. A wave does not rise without the pull of the moon, the push of the wind, the depth of the ocean beneath it. In the same way, we do not rise alone, we do not fall alone. To see this clearly is to open the heart. I know the feeling of believing you are separate, cut off, isolated. Perhaps you have felt it too, lying in bed wondering if anyone truly understands you. That sense of loneliness, of being an island, can be crushing. You may even wear masks to hide it smiling when you want to cry, pretending strength when you feel weak. This illusion of separation deepens the pain. You think, no one else feels this. I am alone. But look closely and you will see. Your loneliness is connected to another's loneliness. Your grief is connected to another's grief. It is as if we are all playing instruments in an orchestra, each unaware of the other, each thinking the sound we make is only ours. But when we listen, when we truly listen, we hear the harmony. We realize we are not isolated notes, but part of a symphony. This truth can be both heavy and liberating. Heavy, because it shows us that we carry more than just ourselves. The choices we make, the emotions we nurture, ripple out endlessly. But liberating, because it means we are never truly alone. Every kindness you show travels farther than you can imagine. A smile to a stranger can soften their anger, which may in turn soften another conflict. A word of encouragement to a friend may give them the strength to carry someone else. Compassion multiplies like light reflected in mirrors, bouncing outward. illuminating dark corners you will never visit. Imagine walking through a forest. Each tree stands tall, appearing separate. But beneath the soil, their roots intertwine, exchanging nutrients, sending signals, warning of danger. They look alone, but they live together. Human beings are no different. Beneath our surfaces, our roots are intertwined. When one suffers, all feel it, even if subtly. When one heals, all are touched. This is why compassion is not a luxury. It is survival. It is the medicine of the web. And yet, even knowing this, we often resist compassion. We harden our hearts, believing that protecting ourselves means shutting others out. But in truth, closing our hearts cuts the very threads that keep us alive. To harden is to wither. 2. Open is to thrive. Compassion is not weakness. It does not mean allowing harm. It means seeing clearly that others, like you, are shaped by conditions they did not choose. It means acting from understanding rather than judgment. The more we see this web, the less rigid our judgments become. The person who lies may have been raised in fear. The person who lashes out may carry wounds from childhood. A person who seems selfish may never have known abundance. None of this excuses harm, but it does explain it. And in explanation, the seed of compassion can grow. Compassion does not erase responsibility, but it transforms our response. Instead of striking back, we pause. Instead of condemning, we seek to understand. Instead of fueling the cycle of pain, we begin to break it. The worst part about chasing money is realizing it never fills the emptiness inside. I have known people who gained everything they thought they wanted: wealth, success, recognition. And yet when the lights went out, when the applause faded, they sat in the same silence as everyone else. Their suffering did not vanish. It only wore a different mask. This is because they, too, were caught in the illusion of self. They believed that by building a stronger identity, a bigger self, they could escape suffering. But the self is not a solid wall to hide behind. It is a river that cannot be contained. Look at your body. Cells die and renew every second. The person you were 10 years ago no longer exists. Even the emotions that feel most defining, anger, joy, sorrow, rise and vanish. The I you cling to is like mist, constantly shifting. Yet we cling, desperate to carve permanence into impermanence. We say, "This is me. This is mine." And in that grasping, we suffer. Imagine a clay pot floating on a river. You carve your name into it, thinking it will last. But the water wears it down, piece by piece, until only fragments remain. That is the self we cling to. But what if instead of clinging to the pot, you flowed with the river? You would see that change is not an enemy, but a companion. That you are not fixed, but free. To realize non-self is not to erase yourself. It is to release the prison of rigidity. It is to see that you are not only your name, your past, your mistakes, your successes. You are larger than that. You are the river, not the pot. And when you see this in yourself, you see it in others. You see that no one is only their anger, their lies, their selfishness. They too are rivers, flowing, capable of change. This vision softens the heart. It opens the door to forgiveness. It turns enemies into fellow travelers. Not even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And when you understand impermanence, you see that every night will end, no matter how long. Everything flows. Life is not a rock, unchanging and heavy. Life is a river, moving ceaselessly, carrying us forward. We suffer not because of change, but because we fight against it. Think of the seasons. Winter turns to spring, spring to summer, summer to autumn. None lasts forever, and yet each has its beauty. If summer clung to its heat, the earth would burn. If winter clung to its frost, nothing would grow. It is in the letting go that life renews itself. Your pain, too, is part of this flow. The heartbreak you feel will soften. The grief you carry will shift. The joy you once knew may fade, but new joy will come. Like a wave, no feeling lasts forever. When you learn to trust this, fear loosens its grip. You no longer drown in the storm, because you know the storm will pass. You ride the waves instead of being crushed by them. This trust is not passive. It is active acceptance. It is the courage to live fully, knowing nothing can be held. It is like dancing with a partner who constantly changes the rhythm. You do not resist. You adapt, you improvise, you move with grace. Life, too, is a dance. And the more we surrender to its flow, the freer we become. When we surrender control, something remarkable happens. We discover a deeper trust, not in outcomes, but in life itself. We realize we are not meant to master the ocean, but to move with it. Like a surfer riding a wave, we do not control the water. We learn to balance with it. This surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It allows us to breathe, to rest, to trust that even when we fall, the ocean will carry us still. Storytelling teaches us this truth more vividly than any lecture. A farmer's horse runs away and neighbors cry, "Such bad luck." But the farmer only says, "Maybe." When the horse returns with others, they cheer, "Such good fortune." Still, he says, "Maybe." When his son breaks his leg, they mourn, "Such misfortune." But again, he says, "Maybe." And when the broken leg spares the son from war, they understand. Life is not fixed as good or bad. It flows. What seems tragedy may reveal blessing. What seems blessing may hide challenge. We cannot know. Our suffering comes from insisting we must know, from labeling what cannot be labeled. When we loosen those labels, when we rest in openness, life itself softens. We taste freedom. And now, let us step deeper into this river together, to see not only how it flows, but how the mind itself paints the colors of its waters. When I was younger, I believed that strength meant control. I tried to shape everything around me, bending life to fit my plans. But no matter how tightly I held, things slipped away. A loved one moved on, a job changed, a dream dissolved. The harder I gripped, the more it hurt, like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. Maybe. You know that feeling too, the exhaustion of trying to control what was never yours to command. We think control will give us safety, but instead it gives us tension, anxiety, and fear. Imagine standing on the shore of the ocean with a bucket, trying to stop the tide. You scoop and scoop, but the water always returns. Soon you collapse, defeated, angry, afraid. Life is like that tide. You cannot command it to stop, no matter how much you wish. You can exhaust yourself in resistance, or you can learn to ride its rhythm. When you release control, something beautiful happens. The fear that once consumed you begins to soften. You realize that life is not against you. It is carrying you. The waves that once terrified you become a dance. You move with them instead of against them. This is not resignation. It is trust. Trust that the flow of life holds you, even when it carries you somewhere unexpected. Trust that just as day follows night, joy will follow sorrow. Trust that the universe is vast and that your place within it does not depend on grasping. 2. Let go is to be free. Free to breathe, free to rest, free to discover peace that was always within you, hidden beneath the struggle to control. Even the mind, restless as it is, reflects this truth. With our thoughts, we make the world. Most people believe the mind is only a mirror, showing reality as it is. But the mind is more than a mirror. It is a painter. It colors every moment. 2 people can stand in the same storm, one cursing the rain, the other smiling at the freshness. The storm is the same, but the world they live in is not. Have you ever noticed how a single thought can change an entire day? A bitter memory can turn sunshine gray. A kind memory can bring warmth even in winter. This is the power of the mind. Yet we often live as prisoners to it. Our thoughts run wild, dragging us from past regrets to future fears. We ride them as if chained to a restless horse. No wonder life feels exhausting. But what if you could simply watch the horse instead of being dragged by it? This is mindfulness. To sit quietly and see thoughts rise and fall like clouds drifting across a vast sky. To notice without clinging, to witness without judgment. Slowly, you realize something profound. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the sky itself, vast, unshaken, spacious. Thoughts come and go, but the sky remains dot in that space. Choice is born. Instead of reacting from old wounds, you respond with presence. Instead of feeding anger, you choose kindness. Instead of drowning in fear, you rest in trust. Each mindful breath is a seed, and each seed grows into a tree that shades the world with peace. There is an old story of a man chased by two tigers. Fleeing, he grabbed a vine hanging over a cliff. Above him, the tigers roared. Below him, another tiger waited. Two mice began to gnaw at the vine. Certain of death, the man noticed a single drop of honey glistening on a leaf. He leaned forward and tasted it. In that moment, there was sweetness. This story is not foolishness. It is truth. Life is fragile, uncertain, filled with danger. But it is also filled with sweetness if only we are present enough to taste it. The honey does not erase the tigers, but it reminds us that even amidst fear, beauty exists. How many drops of honey have you overlooked, lost in worry or regret? How many moments of peace passed by unnoticed? Mindfulness allows you to taste them, to be here, fully alive, even when the future is uncertain. The farmer knew this truth when he said, maybe. Maybe when his horse ran away. Maybe when it returned. Maybe when his son's leg broke. Maybe when that broken leg saved him from war. Life cannot be boxed into good or bad. It is too vast, too fluid. Our labels blind us, chaining us to suffering. But when we release those labels, we open to possibility. What seems like disaster may carry hidden blessings. What seems like blessing may carry hidden lessons. Non-dual awareness is the key to this openness. It is the wisdom of seeing beyond division, beyond me and you, beyond success and failure. It is resting in the wholeness that was always here, untouched by labels. To live this way is to breathe easier. The walls of separation dissolve. Compassion flows more freely, and suffering loses its sharpest edge. When we learn to see without labels, to let go of control, to trust the flow, a new question arises. If I am not my thoughts, not my rigid self, not separate from the world, then what am I? This question is not answered with philosophy, but with experience. And to experience it, we must step further along the path, into the heart of non-dual awareness itself. When I was a child, I remember staring at my reflection in the mirror and wondering, who am I really? I could see my face, my eyes, my smile, but something in me felt deeper than the reflection. That question, unspoken yet burning, has lived in humanity for as long as we can remember. Who am I? Am I only this body, destined to age and die? Am I only this mind, full of fleeting thoughts and emotions? Or am I something more? We cling to the idea of a fixed self, a solid I that defines us. Yet the closer we look, the more that self dissolves. The illusion of self is one of the most persistent causes of suffering, and until we see through it, we remain trapped in endless cycles of grasping and fear. Think of all the roles you play in life. You might be a parent, a child, a worker, a friend. Each role feels real while you live it. Yet when the role shifts, who are you then? The parent becomes a caretaker of aging parents. The worker becomes unemployed. The child grows into adulthood. Each identity feels permanent in the moment, but each eventually fades. If the self were fixed, it could not change. Yet it changes every day in ways small and large. Look closer at the body. Cells die and renew constantly. Within 7 years, nearly every cell in your body is replaced. A person you were a decade ago does not physically exist. Look at the mind. Thoughts appear, linger, and vanish. Emotions rise like waves and disappear into silence. Even memories, the foundation of identity, are unreliable. They shift, distort, and sometimes vanish altogether. What then is the self we cling to so tightly? It is like trying to hold smoke in your hands. The more you grasp, the more it slips away. And yet we cling. We cling to a name, to a story, to a set of labels. We say, I am successful, or I am a failure. We say, I am strong, or I am weak. We say, I am my past, my mistakes, my scars. This clinging becomes a cage. It traps you as in identities that bring suffering. If you believe you are only your success, failure will destroy you. If you believe you are only your body, illness will terrify you. If you believe you are only your emotions, sorrow will drown you. The self, as we imagine it, is fragile because it is built on illusions. But there is another way of seeing. Imagine the self not as a rock, but as a river. The river is never the same from one moment to the next, and yet it flows continuously. It has no fixed shape, yet it is always there. You too are a river, ever-changing, ever-flowing. Your thoughts, emotions, body, and roles are the water moving past. To identify with them is to mistake the wave for the ocean. But to see yourself as the river is to find freedom. This realization is both frightening and liberating. Frightening because it strips away the ground we thought we stood on. If I am not my name, my body, my story, then who am I? But liberating because it frees us from the prison of identity. If I am not fixed, I am free to grow, to change, to begin again. I am not bound by my past mistakes. I am not chained to the image others hold of me. I am free to flow with life itself. Think of someone you hold resentment against. Perhaps they hurt you deeply. Perhaps they betrayed your trust. When you cling to the idea that they are only their mistake, anger hardens in your heart. But if you see them as a river, constantly changing, you realize they are not frozen in that moment. They too are capable of growth. They too are flowing. This does not excuse harm, but it opens the possibility of forgiveness. It allows compassion to enter where bitterness once lived. The illusion of self feeds suffering in countless ways. We crave recognition because we want the self to be validated. We fear death because we think the self will be annihilated. We cling to possessions because we believe they define who we are. But when the illusion dissolves, the chains begin to break. Recognition becomes less urgent because we no longer need a solid self to defend. Death becomes less terrifying because we see that life itself is continuous, even if the form changes. Possessions lose their grip because we see that they cannot define what was never fixed to begin with. This truth is not abstract philosophy. It is lived experience. Close your eyes and notice the thoughts drifting through your mind. Ask yourself, where do they come from? Where do they go? Notice the sensations in your body: warmth, pressure, tension. Do they remain still, or are they shifting even now? Notice the emotions that rise and fall. Can you point to any one thing and say, this is my permanent self? You cannot. And in that realization lies freedom. The The self is not a thing to be found, but an illusion to be seen through. When the illusion fades, what remains is openness, spaciousness, awareness itself. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. You are not the flame. You are the space in which the flame burns. You are not the passing roles, names, and stories. You are the awareness in which they arise and dissolve. To know this is to taste liberation. Pause for a moment. Let yourself breathe. Feel the rise and fall of the breath. Notice how even the breath is not yours to control fully. It moves on its own, giving life without your command. You are not the doer of every act, but part of a flow far greater. To see this is to release the burden of being a solid self. To see this is to rest in freedom. And now, as we step deeper into this river of understanding, let us turn to the truth that everything, not just the self, flows endlessly. Life itself is impermanence, and in learning to embrace that flow, we find peace where once there was fear. When my grandmother grew old, I watched her hands tremble as she reached for a teacup. The same hands that once worked in the fields, the same hands that cooked meals and wiped tears, now struggled to hold a simple cup. As a child, I felt a pang of sorrow. How could time take so much? How could something once so strong become so fragile? It was my first real encounter with impermanence, though I did not yet have the words for it. Everything flows. Nothing in this world stands still. We know this, and yet we resist it with all our might. Perhaps you, too, have tried to hold on to something long after it has begun to slip away. A relationship that no longer fits, but you cling to the memory of what it was. A stage of life, youth, strength, beauty that time has already carried forward. A moment of happiness you wish could last forever. But life is a river, not a rock. You cannot dam its current. To resist it is to suffer. To trust it is to be free. Imagine a child building a sandcastle at the edge of the sea. The waves creep closer, and the child panics, piling more sand to protect the fragile walls. But no matter how hard they work, the tide eventually washes it away. The child cries, believing something has been stolen. Yet if they look again, they will see that the sand is still there, only returned to the greater shore. Our lives are like that castle. We build with love, with hope, with effort. And in time, the tide returns everything to the ocean. This is not cruelty. It is the nature of things. The problem is not change itself. The problem is our fear of change, our refusal to accept it. When you fear aging, every gray hair feels like a wound. When you fear loss, every goodbye feels like death. When you fear endings, every ending steals your peace. But when you see change as the essence of life, fear loses its power. A gray hair becomes a sign of wisdom. A goodbye becomes gratitude for the meeting. An ending becomes the doorway to a new beginning. Think of the seasons. No matter how harsh the winter, spring always comes. No matter how scorching the summer, autumn always cools the air. Each season has its beauty, but none lasts forever. Life, too, has seasons. Childhood, youth, adulthood, old age. Joy, sorrow, success, failure. Each comes and goes in its time. When we embrace this truth, we stop clinging to one season and fearing the next. We learn to ride the waves instead of being crushed by them. There is a quiet freedom in impermanence. It reminds us not to take anything for granted. The hug you give today, the meal you share, the laughter you hear, they will not last, and that is what makes them precious. Impermanence teaches us to savor life, to taste its sweetness while it is here. It teaches us gratitude, and it also teaches us courage. For even in sorrow, we know that sorrow too will pass. No storm lasts forever. No night endures without dawn. And yet, knowing this, we still resist. We cling to what is familiar, even when it causes us pain. We fear the unknown more than we dislike our suffering, but clinging only deepens the wound. Imagine holding a rope as the current pulls it away. The tighter you grip, the more your skin burns. You could let go and float, but fear whispers, "If I release, I will drown." In truth, it is the clinging that drowns you. The river does not wish you harm. It only wishes to carry you forward. Letting go is not easy. It requires trust. Trust that you will be carried. Trust that new joys will come. Trust that even loss can hold hidden gifts. Trust is like opening your hands to the rain, no longer trying to catch every drop, but simply feeling it fall. To live this way is to breathe easier. It is to wake up each morning knowing that today will not last, and because of that, it is worth living fully. It is to say goodbye with love instead of fear, knowing that all meetings end, but love itself remains. There was once a monk who cherished a simple porcelain teacup. Each day he drank from it with gratitude. One morning, another monk accidentally knocked it from the table, and it shattered. The first monk did not cry out in anger. He only smiled and said, "Of course." He had long ago accepted that the cup was already broken, even when it still held tea. By seeing its impermanence from the beginning, he was able to drink from it fully without fear of loss. You, too, can live this way. See the cup as already broken. The flower is already wilted. The day has already passed. And in that awareness, cherish them even more deeply while they are here. This is not pessimism. It is the doorway to joy. For when you accept that everything flows, you no longer waste energy fighting the tide. You float, you dance, you rest in the truth of impermanence. And in this resting, something even deeper reveals itself. Beyond change, beyond impermanence, lies a vast awareness that does not come and go. The river flows, but the sky above it remains. To glimpse this is to step into the heart of non-dual awareness, where separation fades and the world reveals its wholeness. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what have you been clinging to that is already flowing away? Can you soften your grip? Can you trust the river? There's one hidden cause of suffering that most people never notice. We believe permanence is possible. We cling to things as if they will last forever, and when they don't, we feel betrayed. Yet life has been whispering the same truth since the beginning. Everything flows. Nothing in this world stands still. The mountain erodes grain by grain. The river carves valleys over centuries. The body ages breath by breath. We may not want it to, but change is the nature of life. The pain of resisting impermanence shows up everywhere. A parent sees their child grow and feels grief instead of joy, longing for the days of tiny hands and laughter. A young person sees wrinkles forming and feels despair, as if beauty has abandoned them. A worker loses their job and believes their worth has disappeared with it. In each case, the suffering is not the change itself, but the refusal to accept it. Like clinging to a burning rope, the more we resist, the more it hurts. The emotions that flow from this resistance run deep. Fear of death, fear of loss, fear of endings. We carry these fears silently, often without admitting them. They creep into our relationships, our decisions, our hearts. We avoid loving too deeply because we fear loss. We avoid risking too boldly because we fear failure. We avoid living fully because we fear change. And so impermanence, instead of teaching us freedom, becomes the cage that holds us back. But what if impermanence is not the enemy? What if it is the very thing that makes life precious? Imagine a flower that never wilted. Would you cherish its beauty in the same way? Imagine a sunset that never ended. Would you notice its colors, or would you grow numb to them? It is precisely because things end that they matter. Impermanence gives birth to gratitude. The hug is sweeter because you know it will not last. The laugh is brighter because it echoes only for a moment. The day is worth living because tomorrow is never promised. The Shida compared life to a river. You cannot step into the same river twice because both you and the river have changed. This is not tragedy. It is truth. To live with this awareness is to stop clinging and start flowing. It is to ride the current instead of being battered by it. It is to trust that though the water carries you forward, you are not lost. You are part of something vast, something alive. Think of grief. When someone you love dies, the sorrow can feel unbearable. The mind screams, it should not have ended. But death is not a mistake. It is the natural continuation of life. The wave rises, shines in the sun, and returns to the ocean. To resist this is to drown in sorrow. To accept it is to feel both grief and love fully, knowing that love is not destroyed by death, but transformed. Grief becomes the echo of love, proof that what was shared mattered. Impermanence can also free us from despair. When you are in pain, remember, this too will pass. No storm lasts forever. No night stretches without dawn. Even the heaviest sorrow softens with time. The river moves forward, and so do you. Trusting this truth gives strength. It reminds you that change does not only take away, it also brings new beginnings. Picture autumn leaves falling. At first, they may seem like loss. The tree grows bare, the air turns cold. But in time, new buds appear, and the cycle renews. Your life is the same. Every ending is also a beginning. Every loss creates space for something new. To embrace impermanence is to live with hope, even in the darkest times. There was once a king who demanded his wise men create a phrase that would always be true, in joy or in sorrow. After much thought, they presented him with 4 words. This too shall pass. When he was grieving, those words gave him comfort. When he was rejoicing, those words gave him humility. Impermanence humbles us and comforts us at once. It reminds us not to grasp too tightly, not to despair too deeply, but to live fully in the present. The solution is not to deny impermanence, but to see it as the fabric of life, to breathe with it, to dance with it, to let it teach us gratitude and courage. When we stop clinging, peace arises naturally. The fear of loss loosens. The weight of control dissolves. The heart learns to trust the flow. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And even the deepest fear softens when we awaken to the truth that beyond impermanence lies something even greater, a wholeness beyond labels, beyond duality. To step into this awareness is to discover freedom that no change can touch. When I was standing at the bedside of a dying friend, I realized how fragile life truly is. His hand in mine, once strong and firm, had become thin and trembling. The machines around him beeped softly, marking the rhythm of a body slowly letting go. In that moment, I felt the weight of impermanence like never before. But alongside the sorrow, something else arose: clarity. The truth that nothing lasts forever was painful, yes, but also strangely liberating. It reminded me that clinging to what must pass only deepens suffering. The wave rises, the wave falls, and yet the ocean remains that we often believe we can outsmart. Impermanence. We invest in beauty treatments, hoping to hold back age. We chase wealth, thinking money will shield us from loss. We try to freeze time with photos, recordings, and memories. Yet no matter how much we fight, life slips through our fingers. And in that slipping, we feel fear. The fear of death, the fear of endings, the fear of losing what we love. This fear shapes our lives, often in ways we do not see. We work harder, not only for success, but to silence the fear of being forgotten. We cling to relationships, not only for love, but to escape the fear of being alone. We distract ourselves endlessly, hoping not to hear the whisper of impermanence in the background, but impermanence is not the enemy. It is the nature of reality. To deny it is like closing your eyes to the sunrise and insisting the night remains. To resist it is like standing on the shore and shouting at the waves to stop. The waves do not stop. They never have, and they never will. Our suffering is born not from the waves themselves, but from our refusal to ride them. Emotionally, this resistance builds walls around the heart. We do not allow ourselves to love fully, because love might end. We do not allow ourselves to dream boldly, because dreams might fail. We live cautiously, half-heartedly, afraid of what impermanence will take. But here is the paradox. The very thing we fear is what gives life its meaning. A flower is beautiful because it wilts. A song moves us because it ends. A day is precious because it will not return. Without impermanence, life would be flat, empty, endless repetition. It is change that makes the world a live dot. To embrace impermanence is to step into freedom. When you see that everything flows, you stop grasping. You begin to savor instead. The hug becomes warmer because you know it will not last. The sunset becomes brighter because its colors will fade. The conversation with a loved one becomes sacred because tomorrow is never promised. Impermanence teaches us presence. It tells us, be here, taste this moment. Drink it fully, for it will never come again. There is another gift in impermanence. Hope. Just as joy fades, so too does sorrow. Just as health declines, so too does illness ease. No state lasts forever. The darkest night always turns to dawn. The heaviest rain always clears. When you are suffering, impermanence whispers, hold on, this too shall pass. And when you are rejoicing, it whispers again, cherish this. This too shall pass. Both whispers are gifts, teaching balance, humility, and gratitude. Consider the story of the monk and the teacup. The monk cherished his porcelain cup, but he always held it knowing it was already broken. To him, it's eventual. Shattering was not a tragedy, but a certainty. Because of this awareness, every time he drank tea, he drank with joy. When the cup finally broke, he simply smiled. This is the wisdom of impermanence. To live as though everything is already broken, and because of that, to love it more deeply. While it is here, when you begin to live this way, fear softens. A grip of control loosens. You no longer need to hoard, to cling, to panic. You realize that nothing was ever yours to keep. You are only a traveler passing through, and each sight, sound, and touch is a gift for the journey. Peace is not in freezing life, but in flowing with it. The path of impermanence leads us further into a deeper seeing. For if everything flows, then even the labels we place on life, good and bad, success and failure, gain and loss, are also fleeting illusions. Beyond impermanence lies the truth of non-dual awareness, where separation itself dissolves, and the world reveals its wholeness. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what have you been resisting? What have you been trying to hold still? Can you let the river carry it instead? Can you trust that even as everything flows, peace remains? When I was a boy, I believed the world was neatly divided, good and bad, success and failure, friend and enemy. I thought these labels were solid, like walls separating one thing from another. But as I grew older, those walls began to crumble. A person I once called an enemy showed me kindness. A success I once celebrated left me feeling empty. A loss I once grieved opened the door to new beginnings. Slowly, I realized that most of our suffering comes not from life itself, but from the labels we attach to it. Beyond those labels lies a freedom we rarely taste: non-dual awareness, the seeing of life as a whole, without division. Think of how often we divide our days. We wake up and say, "This is a good day if things go our way," and "This is a bad day if they do not." But what makes it so? The sun rises the same, the air flows the same, the earth spins the same. It is our mind, with its endless habit of naming, that creates the division. With our thoughts we make the world, and in dividing it, we divide ourselves. We say, "I am a success," or "I am a failure," "I am worthy," or "I am not enough." Each label cuts the wholeness of who we are into fragments. Each label builds a prison of the mind. This prison is painful. When we cling to good, we fear its loss. When we cling to bad, we despair. When we cling to me and you, we create walls where none exist. The suffering that follows is sharp and unrelenting. It is like painting black and white stripes across a rainbow and wondering why its beauty fades. Emotionally, these divisions wear us down. Think of the times you have failed and labeled yourself unworthy. That label seeps into every corner of your being, shaping how you walk, how you speak, how you dream. Or think of the times you succeeded and clung to the label of winner. That, too, becomes a chain, for now you fear losing it. In both cases, the labels rob you of freedom. They shrink your vastness into a single word. But life is not so small. Life cannot be reduced to labels. A storm that floods one village brings water to another. A rejection from one job leads to the discovery of a truer path. A painful breakup makes space for deeper love. To call any of these simply bad or good is to miss their fullness. Beyond labels, life is whole. Beyond duality, the world is vast. The solution is not to abolish language, but to see through its illusions. When you notice yourself dividing life into categories, pause. Ask, is this the whole truth or only a label? Look deeper. Beneath failure lies growth. Beneath loss lies love. Beneath enemy lies a human being with fears and dreams like yours. To see in this way is to rest in non-dual awareness. It is to experience connection beyond separation, wholeness beyond division. Not imagine standing before the ocean. The waves rise and fall, crash and retreat. If you focus only on one wave, you might call it strong or weak, good or bad. But if you step back, you see all the waves are part of the same sea. They rise and fall together. They are not separate. Life is like this. Every joy and sorrow, every gain and loss, every me and you are all waves of the same ocean. To rest in this awareness is to find peace no storm can shatter. There is a story of an old farmer. His horse ran away, and neighbors cried, "Such bad luck." The farmer simply said, "Maybe." When the horse returned with others, they shouted, "Such good fortune." Again he said, "Maybe." When his son broke his leg, they mourned, "Such misfortune." Still he said, "Maybe." When soldiers came to take young men to war, and his son was spared because of his injury, the neighbors marveled at his wisdom. The farmer knew what few of us remember. Life cannot be neatly divided. What seems bad may lead to good. What seems good may lead to sorrow. The truth is larger than our labels. To live in non-dual awareness is not to become passive. It is to see clearly. It is to respond from wholeness instead of reaction. When someone insults you, the label enemy rises quickly. But if you pause, if you look deeper, you may see their insult is born of their own pain. You may respond not with anger, but with understanding. When you fail, the label worthless may appear. But if you pause, if you see beyond the word, you notice the lesson hidden within. You rise again, freer than before. Living this way requires practice. The mind loves its labels. It clings to them as if they are truth. But with mindfulness, you can begin to see through them. Each time you notice a label, each time you pause before clinging, you take a step into freedom. Slowly, the walls of division crumble. The prison of duality opens. And in that opening, you taste peace. The worst part about chasing success is believing it will make you whole. But wholeness cannot be found in success or failure, in gain or loss. It can only be found in the awareness that all of these are waves in the same ocean. You are never broken. You are never incomplete. You are always whole, always part of the vastness beyond division. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what labels have you been clinging to? What walls have you built that cut you off from life's fullness? Can you see beyond them? Can you rest in the wholeness that was always here? When I was younger, I met a man who defined himself only by victory. Every story he told was about the contests he had won, the promotions he had achieved, the recognition he had earned. To him, life was divided into winners and losers, and he believed he was on the right side of the line. But years later, when he lost his job and his reputation slipped away, he fell into despair. Without his labels of winner and successful, he felt like nothing. His suffering was not because of the loss itself, but because of the walls he had built with labels that eventually crumbled. This is the prison of duality. You may know this pain yourself. Perhaps you have labeled yourself not good enough, and that label follows you into every room. Perhaps you have labeled yourself strong, and then a single moment of weakness shatters your image. Perhaps you have labeled someone else enemy, and years of bitterness keep you chained to them even when they are not present. Each label becomes a chain, and the more chains we carry, the heavier life feels. The emotional cost is immense. Labels cut us into fragments. They make us doubt, fear, and resist. They force us into roles that do not fit, and they make us blind to the richness of life beyond categories. Imagine wearing glasses that tint everything black and white. The world of color still exists, but you cannot see it. That is what living with labels is like. You miss the rainbow of reality because your mind insists on stripes of good and bad, success and failure, self and other. But there is a way out. The teachings show us that beyond the labels lies a wholeness that cannot be divided. This wholeness is not a theory. It is something you can taste. Sit quietly and watch your thoughts. Notice how quickly they name things. Pleasant, unpleasant, safe, unsafe. Notice how quickly they divide me, you, right, wrong. And then notice what happens when you let the labels drift away like leaves on a stream. What remains? A vast awareness, spacious and clear. In that space, there is no need to divide. The world simply is whole and unbroken. This experience is called non-dual awareness. It is the recognition that separation is an illusion. You and I, self and other, good and bad, these are mental constructions, not ultimate truth. In non-dual awareness, you see the world as a whole, not as fragments. You see that the person you resent is not separate from you. Their pain is tied to yours. Their joy echoes in you. You see that success and failure are not opposites, but part of the same movement of growth. You see that gain and loss are not enemies, but teachers pointing to the same truth. Everything flows, and nothing is separate. Living from this awareness changes everything. Relationships soften. Enemies become fellow travelers. Failures become lessons instead of curses. Even death, which seems like the ultimate division, is seen differently. The wave does not disappear when it falls. It returns to the ocean. In the same way, what you call death is not an end, but a transformation. Wholeness remains. To illustrate, imagine two hands of the same person, one striking the other. If you look only at the hands, you might say, one hand is enemy, the other is victim. But if you look at the whole person, the division dissolves. Both hands belong to the same body. Life is like that. We may appear as separate individuals, sometimes hurting one another, sometimes loving one another. But beyond the labels, beyond the appearances, we are part of the same whole. To see this is to forgive more easily, to love more deeply, to live with greater peace. The solution is not to force yourself to abandon all labels at once. The mind will always create them. The solution is to loosen your grip on them, to remember that a label is just a story, not the whole truth. To step back and see the rainbow behind the black and white. With practice, you begin to live more from awareness and less from labels. The chains grow lighter. The prison doors open. This way of seeing does not make life dull. It makes it vivid. Imagine tasting a fruit without naming it sweet or sour, good or bad. You simply taste. Imagine meeting a person without labeling them friend or stranger, safe or dangerous. You simply meet. Imagine living a day without dividing it into success or failure. You simply live. In this openness, life becomes richer, more colorful, more whole. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what label are you holding right now that brings you pain? Can you set it down, even briefly? Can you look beyond it and see the wholeness that was always there? Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And just as labels dissolve in the light of awareness, so too does our desperate need for control. In the next step of this journey, we will see how letting go of control opens the door to trust, grace, and freedom. When I was young, I thought the strongest people were the ones who controlled everything. They seemed untouchable, shaping the world to fit their will. I admired them, even envied them. But as life unfolded, I saw that control is not strength. It is tension. It is fear disguised as power. The tighter people cling, the more fragile they become. Like someone trying to hold water in a clenched fist, they exhaust themselves, only to watch it slip away. Letting go of control is not weakness. It is the doorway to freedom. The pain of control is everywhere. You feel it when you cannot relax because you need every detail to be perfect. You feel it when you cannot enjoy the present because you are plotting how to secure the future. You feel it in relationships when you try to shape another person to match your expectations. Each attempt to control is like pulling a rope against a river. You strain, you sweat, you suffer, but the current does not stop. In the end, you are left weary and bitter. Emotionally, control breeds fear. If you must control everything, then every uncertainty becomes a threat. The future becomes terrifying. People become unpredictable. Life becomes a battlefield. Anxiety grows because the world is too vast to be managed. Frustration grows because nothing stays fixed. Anger grows because others do not obey your script. And beneath it all, sorrow grows because deep down you know the truth. Control is an illusion, but letting go of control is not giving up. It is learning to trust the flow of life. It is the wisdom of the dancer who does not fight the rhythm, but moves with it. It is the wisdom of the sailor who does not command the wind, but adjusts the sails. To surrender control is to discover grace. Suddenly, life is not a battle to be won, but a dance to be lived. This does not mean you stop acting. The monk still tills the soil. The farmer still plants seeds. The worker still builds. But they do so with openness, not rigidity. They trust that the outcome is not entirely in their hands. They give their best, and they release the rest. In this way, peace enters where tension once lived. Imagine standing in a river. If you resist the current, it knocks you down. If you flow with it, it carries you. Letting go of control is like floating. The river supports you. You do not sink, you are carried. Life, too, carries you when you release the illusion of mastery. The solution is practice. Each time you notice yourself clinging, soften your grip. Each time fear whispers that you must control, breathe, and release. Each time anger tells you to tighten, loosen instead. Slowly, you begin to live with trust. Trust in the unfolding of life. Trust in your ability to respond, not dictate. Trust in the vastness beyond your plans. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And when you let go of control, you discover that dawn comes without your command. It always has, and it always will. To see this is to find rest, to find peace, to find the freedom of trust. When we surrender control, the mind itself begins to change. We realize it is not only the world outside that resists our grasp, it is also the world within. Thoughts come and go without our permission. Emotions rise and fall without our command. The attempt to control them creates inner war. But to watch them with awareness is to discover peace. The mind is like a wild horse, pulling in every direction. If you try to hold the reins too tightly, the horse bucks and fights. If you let go completely, it runs wild. But if you ride with balance, with presence, the horse becomes a companion. In the same way, when we observe the mind without judgment, it softens. It ceases to drag us endlessly, and we begin to guide it gently. With compassion, this trust in the flow of life transforms suffering into strength. A problem was never change, never uncertainty. The problem was resistance. Once resistance dissolves, life becomes lighter. The same ocean that once terrified you becomes the dance floor of your soul. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what are you clinging to so tightly that it exhausts you? Can you open your hand and let the water flow? Can you trust that in letting go, you will not drown, but be carried? When I first learned to swim, I remember thrashing wildly in the water, certain that if I did not fight, I would sink. My arms flailed, my legs kicked, and fear filled my chest. But then a teacher told me, stop fighting, float. Hesitantly, I let go, and to my surprise, the water held me. I did not sink, I did not drown, I floated. That moment was more than a swimming lesson. It was a lesson for life. The same truth applies to control. We thrash, we fight, we panic, convinced that if we let go, everything will collapse. But when we finally release, we discover the water of life holds us. The pain of control often comes from good intentions. We want to protect our loved ones, so we try to shape their choices. We want to secure our future, so we cling to rigid plans. We want to feel safe, so we build walls around our hearts. But these acts of control create suffering. The parent who forces a child's path may wound their spirit. The worker who clings to one plan may miss new opportunities. The person who guards their heart too tightly may never taste love. Control promises safety but delivers sorrow. Emotionally, control tightens us like a fist. We become rigid, tense, unable to bend. Fear dominates because anything we cannot control feels dangerous. Anxiety dominates because the future never obeys. Anger dominates because people do not follow our script. And beneath it all lies grief, because deep down we know the truth. We were never in control to begin with, but letting go is not abandonment. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that life is bigger than our grasp. It is trust in the rhythm of the universe. Just as the heart beats without our command, just as the earth spins without our effort, so too does life unfold beyond our control. When we align with this rhythm, we find peace. Imagine a dancer moving with music. If they try to control every step, the dance becomes stiff. But if they listen, if they trust, if they move with the rhythm, the dance becomes grace. Letting go of control is like this. It does not mean you stop moving. It means you move with flow instead of against it. The teachings remind us we are not meant to master the ocean. only to move with its waves. When we surrender, we discover strength greater than force. Like bamboo, we bend without breaking. Like water, we adapt without losing our essence. Surrender is not weakness. It is resilience. It is trust. This practice begins within. Notice your thoughts. Notice how they arise without your command. Notice your emotions. Notice how they shift like weather beyond your control. The attempt to force them away only strengthens them. But when you watch them with awareness, they soften. You realize you are not your thoughts, not your emotions. You are the sky in which they appear. You are vast enough to hold them without being defined by them. Letting go also transforms relationships. Instead of trying to control others, you begin to trust their journey. You stop forcing and you start supporting. You stop demanding and you start listening. Love becomes freer, lighter, more genuine. It is no longer possession, but presence. Perhaps the most powerful freedom of letting go is rest. Control is exhausting. It keeps us awake at night, replaying what-ifs, planning every step. Letting go allows rest. It allows us to breathe. It allows us to remember that the universe is larger than our plans and kinder than our fears. There was once a man who clung to the mast of a ship during a storm, his arms aching, his body rigid. When the storm ended, he was exhausted, bruised, and broken. Another man in the same storm, bent with the ship, trusted the waves, and though he too was afraid, he emerged with strength intact. Both faced the same storm. The difference was control versus trust. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what storm are you fighting right now? Can you loosen your grip? Can you trust the ship of life to carry you? Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And when we let go of control, the dawn is brighter, because we are no longer blinded by fear. From this trust flows a deeper truth. The mind itself is the artist shaping our world. To understand this is to take the next step on the path, the recognition that with our thoughts, we make the world. When I was a child, I once stared at the clouds for hours, watching them drift and change. One moment they looked like castles, the next like animals, then like nothing at all. I realized later that my mind worked the same way. It shaped the world with images, labels, and stories that were never fixed. The mind is not just a mirror reflecting reality. It is the artist, painting it. With our thoughts, we make the world. The pain of an untrained mind is immense. When your thoughts are full of fear, the world feels dangerous. When your thoughts are full of anger, the world feels hostile. When your thoughts are full of doubt, the world feels hopeless. You live as though chained to a wild horse, dragged in every direction. One moment you are pulled into the past, reliving regrets. The next moment you are dragged into the future, drowning in worries. Rarely do you stand in the present, where life actually happens. Emotionally, this wandering mind exhausts you. It leaves you restless, anxious, reactive. A single thought, I am not enough, can poison an entire day. A single fear, what if I fail, can stop you from even trying. These thoughts are like clouds blocking the sun, convincing you the world is gray when in truth, the light has never left. But mindfulness offers a way through. It is the simple, profound act of noticing. To notice your breath rising and falling. To notice your thoughts appearing and disappearing, like clouds across the sky. To notice emotions as passing waves instead of permanent truths. Mindfulness does not stop the clouds from forming, but it reminds you that you are the sky. Vast and untouched dot, this awareness changes everything. When anger arises, you see it as anger, not as me. When fear arises, you see it as fear, not as truth. When doubt arises, you see it as doubt, not as destiny. In this space, choice is born. you are no longer a prisoner of thought. You become the witness, the observer, the painter who can choose new colors. Imagine walking down a crowded street. If your mind is full of anger, every face seems unfriendly. If your mind is full of gratitude, every face seems kind. The street has not changed only. Your mind has. This is the power you carry. By shaping your thoughts, you shape your world. This does not mean you force yourself to think only positive thoughts. That too becomes a form of control and denial. Instead, you meet each thought with awareness. You see it clearly without clinging, without judgment. Some thoughts you feed, others you release. Slowly, the garden of your mind begins to change. Weeds give way to blossoms. Fear gives way to trust. Anger gives way to compassion. The Buddha once said, "What we think, we become." Every thought is a seed. If you water seeds of anger, anger will grow. If you water seeds of kindness, kindness will grow. This is not magic. It is the natural law of the mind. Where attention goes, energy flows. Consider the story of the honey. Drop. A man is chased by 2 tigers and clings to a vine over a cliff. Below him, another tiger waits. Mice begin gnawing at the vine. Death seems certain. And yet, in that moment, he notices a drop of honey on a leaf. He leans forward and tastes it. For that moment, there is sweetness. The tigers and the mice remain, but his awareness shifts. He is present, and in presence, life is still rich. This story is not about denial. It is about attention. Even when life is filled with fear, there is honey. Even when problems surround you, there is sweetness. The question is, where will you place your mind? On the tigers or on the honey? On fear or on presence? To train the mind is to choose wisely. Not to escape life, but to live it fully. Not to erase sorrow, but to see it clearly and hold it gently. Not to deny fear, but to meet it with courage. With each breath of mindfulness, you step closer to freedom. Pause for a moment. Notice your breath. Notice a single thought as it arises. Watch it come. Watch it go. Ask yourself, if I am watching the thought, how can I be the thought? In that awareness lies peace. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And when the mind begins to quiet, when thoughts lose their chains, the world itself grows brighter. From here, we move into stories that reveal these truths more deeply, stories that shine light on the illusions we chase and the wisdom that can set us free. When I was older, I met a teacher who told me, "Your mind is like a garden. What you plant will grow." At first, I thought it was only a metaphor, but as I practiced, I realized it was truth. A garden left untended fills with weeds. A mind left untended fills with fear, anger, and craving. But a garden cared for blossoms with beauty. A mind cared for blossoms with peace. Every thought is a seed. Every seed grows. With our thoughts, we make the world. The pain of forgetting this truth is everywhere. You may wake up in the morning with a single anxious thought, and by evening, it has multiplied into a forest of worries. You may hear one harsh word from someone, and by night, it has grown into a story that poisons your heart. The mind magnifies what it focuses on. Left unchecked, it feeds suffering. Weeds grow fast when no gardener is present. Emotionally, this unchecked mind leaves us restless and heavy. Anger repeats itself in loops, replaying the same wound. Fear creates endless what-ifs that never come true. Desire pulls us from one craving to the next, always promising peace, but never delivering. The mind becomes a storm, and we, the leaving. We are the storm, are tossed without rest. But the truth is simpler. You are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm appears, Mindfulness is the key to remembering this. It is like walking into the garden each day to see what has grown. Some seeds you water, some weeds you pull. You do not abandon the garden, you tend it. In the same way, you observe your thoughts. You notice which ones bring peace, which ones bring pain. You nurture peace, you release pain. Slowly, the garden of the mind begins to transform. This transformation is not sudden. It is gentle, steady, like the growth of a tree. At first, you may still be swept away by anger or fear, but over time, you notice the gaps. You notice the moment between thought and reaction, and in that moment, you find freedom. You are no longer a prisoner of thought. You are the gardener. Consider again the honey drop story. The man clinging to the vine could have filled his final moments with fear of the tigers above and below, or sorrow at the mice gnawing the rope. But instead, he noticed the honey. His mind shifted. He tasted sweetness in the face of danger. His suffering lessened, not because the tigers vanished, but because his mind chose presence. This is the power of awareness. Not to live mindfully is not to deny suffering. It is to meet it with clarity. When sorrow arises, you see it as sorrow. When joy arises, you see it as joy. You hold both gently, knowing neither lasts forever. You are not trapped by them. You are present with them. And in presence, peace is always possible. This is not abstract. You can test it right now. Pause. Notice your breath. Notice a single thought passing through your mind. Do not cling to it. Do not fight it. Just watch. You will see the thought rises and falls on its own. You did not command it to arrive, and you cannot command it to stay. Already, it is gone. If you can see this, even for a moment, you are free. Training the mind is like training a muscle. It takes repetition. It takes patience, but every small step matters. Each mindful breath is a seed planted. Each moment of awareness is a weed pulled. Over time, the garden grows lush with peace, compassion, and clarity. The mind is powerful. It can create suffering or liberation. The choice lies in how we use it. When we are unconscious, it binds us. When we are aware, it frees us. The path of mindfulness is the path of freedom. There is a story of a monk who is insulted daily by a villager. Each day, the man spat harsh words, hoping to provoke anger, but the monk never reacted. One day, frustrated, the villager asked, "Why do you not respond? Do my words mean nothing to you?" The monk smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, who does it belong to?" The villager was stunned. The monk's peace came not from denying the insult, but from refusing to let his mind be poisoned by it. This is the fruit of mindfulness. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what thoughts are you accepting as truth when they are only passing clouds? Can you let them go? Can you taste the honey instead of staring at the tigers? Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And with each mindful breath, with each seed of awareness, the dawn grows brighter. From here, let us turn to stories of impermanence and wisdom, where ordinary lives reveal extraordinary truths, reminding us that liberation is not far away but within. Each moment we live. When I was a child, I watched my father lose everything he worked for. The house we lived in was sold, the fields he tended were taken, and the pride he carried collapsed under the weight of loss. I remember his silence more than his words, the way he sat for hours staring at the ground, as if searching for answers. In the dust. That memory stayed with me, teaching me that life does not unfold as we expect. What we treasure can vanish. What we fear can arrive. And in the middle of it all, we search for meaning. There was once a monk who owned a simple porcelain teacup. He cherished it, not because it was valuable, but because it reminded him of simplicity. Each morning, he drank tea from it with quiet gratitude. One day, a visitor accidentally knocked it from the table, and it shattered on the floor. The visitor gasped, apologizing again and again. But the monk simply smiled and said, "Of course." For years, he had lived as if the cup was already broken. Because of that, every sip he drank was filled with joy, not fear. And when the cup finally broke, he did not suffer. The pain of clinging lies at the heart of our lives. We cling to objects, to people, to identities, as though they will last forever. We say, "This is mine. This is me. This will not change," and yet everything we cling to changes. The body grows old. Loved ones leave. Achievements fade. When what we cling to slips away, our hearts break. It feels as if we, ourselves, are shattering like the porcelain cup. Emotionally, this clinging creates fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of endings. It creates anxiety because we try to control what cannot be controlled. It creates sorrow because no matter how tightly we hold, nothing stays. We live as if standing on a shore, trying to hold the waves back with our hands. The waves do not stop, and our struggle only exhausts us. The wisdom of the monk and the teacup points to another way. To live as though the cup is already broken. To see impermanence clearly, not as tragedy, but as truth. When you accept that everything flows, fear loosens its grip. You no longer cling desperately, because you know clinging cannot change reality. Instead, you savor, you drink deeply, you love fully, you live gratefully. This does not mean you become detached or cold. On the contrary, it makes you more alive. When you know your loved one will not be here forever, you cherish their presence more. When you know the flower will wilt, you breathe in its fragrance more deeply. When you know the day will end, you live it more fully. Impermanence is not the enemy of joy. It is its source. Without endings, beginnings would hold no beauty. Without loss, love would hold no meaning. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hands. If you close your fist too tightly, you crush it. If you open your hand gently, it rests there, free, and you can admire its colors before it flies away. Life is like this. To cling is to destroy. To hold lightly is to truly see. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging, and freedom arises from letting go. Letting go does not mean abandoning what you love. It means loving without possession. It means caring without fear. It means opening your hand to the flow of life instead of fighting to keep what must pass. Consider your own life. What teacup are you clinging to? What do you fear losing so much that the fear steals your peace even now? Can you live as though it is already broken? Can you cherish it more deeply, not because it will last, but because it will not? The solution is not resignation. It is awakening. To awaken to impermanence is to awaken to gratitude. To awaken to clinging is to awaken to freedom. Each time you notice yourself tightening your grip, you can breathe, soften, and release. Slowly, life becomes lighter. Fear loosens, sorrow softens, joy deepens. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if I knew this day was already broken, already, passing, how would I live it? Would I love more? Would I forgive sooner? Would I savor more deeply? The answer is the path. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And the wisdom of the broken teacup leads us forward to see not only impermanence, but also the paradoxes of life that challenge our assumptions and open the door to deeper freedom. The pain of clinging lies at the heart of our lives. We cling to objects, to people, to identities as though they will last forever. We say, "This is mine. This is me. This will not change." And yet everything we cling to changes. The body grows old. Loved ones leave. Achievements fade. When what we cling to slips away, our hearts break. It feels as if we, ourselves, are shattering like the porcelain cup. Emotionally, this clinging creates fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of endings. It creates anxiety because we try to control what cannot be controlled. It creates sorrow because no matter how tightly we hold, nothing stays. We live as if standing on a shore, trying to hold the waves back with our hands. The waves do not stop, and our struggle only exhausts us. The wisdom of the monk and the teacup points to another way. To live as though the cup is already broken. To see impermanence clearly, not as tragedy, but as truth. When you accept that everything flows, fear loosens its grip. You no longer cling desperately, because you know clinging cannot change reality. Instead, you savor, you drink deeply, you love fully, you live gratefully. This does not mean you become detached or cold. On the contrary, it makes you more alive. When you know your loved one will not be here forever, you cherish their presence more. When you know the flower will wilt, you breathe in its fragrance more deeply. When you know the day will end, you live it more fully. Impermanence is not the enemy of joy. It is its source. Without endings, beginnings would hold no beauty. Without loss, love would hold no meaning. Imagine holding a butterfly in your hands. If you close your fist too tightly, you crush it. If you open your hand gently, it rests there, free, and you can admire its colors before it flies away. Life is like this. To cling is to destroy. To hold lightly is to truly see. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging and freedom arises from letting go. Letting go does not mean abandoning what you love. It means loving without possession. It means caring without fear. It means opening your hand to the flow of life instead of fighting to keep what must pass. Consider your own life. What teacup are you clinging to? What do you fear losing so much that the fear steals your peace even now? Can you live as though it is already broken? Can you cherish it more deeply, not because it will last, but because it will not? The solution is not resignation. It is awakening. To awaken to impermanence is to awaken to gratitude. To awaken to clinging is to awaken to freedom. Each time you notice yourself tightening your grip, you can breathe, soften, and release. Slowly, life becomes lighter. Fear loosens, sorrow softens, joy deepens. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, if I knew this day was already broken, already, passing, how would I live it? Would I love more? Would I forgive sooner? Would I savor more deeply? The answer is the path. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And the wisdom of the broken teacup leads us forward to see not only impermanence, but also the paradoxes of life that challenge our assumptions and open the door to deeper freedom. People say, anger makes you strong. I say it makes you weaker than ever. Anger burns hot, but it blinds you to truth. It feels powerful in the moment, like a fire blazing in the chest, but when the flames die down, only ashes remain, ashes of relationships, ashes of peace, ashes of clarity. Yet anger itself is not the true enemy. Beneath anger lies something deeper: pain, fear, and misunderstanding. If we can see beneath the surface, if we can hold our anger with awareness, it can become a teacher instead of a tyrant. The pain of anger is sharp. It turns friends into enemies, strangers into threats, and loved ones into opponents. It makes the heart pound, the breath quicken, the voice rise. It leaves us trembling long after the moment has passed. And often, it brings regret. Words spoken cannot be unsaid. Actions taken cannot be undone. Anger promises strength, but delivers weakness. Emotionally, anger is heavy. It tightens the chest, narrows the vision, and poisons the mind. It feeds on itself, growing. Stronger the more we resist it. It divides us from others, and it divides us from ourselves. At its core, anger is suffering, yet we treat it as fuel. We carry it like a weapon, not realizing that it cuts us more than anyone else. But the teachings show another path. Anger is not to be suppressed or denied. It is to be understood. Like a fire, it needs fuel to burn. That fuel is fear, hurt, or unmet needs. When you look deeply into your anger, you find its roots. Perhaps someone's words stirred an old wound. Perhaps their actions threatened your sense of safety. Perhaps your expectations were not met. Anger is not random. It is a signal pointing to deeper pain. The solution is mindfulness. When anger rises, breathe. Notice the fire in your chest. Notice the thoughts racing in your mind. Do not act yet. Do not speak yet. Just breathe. Each breath is like a drop of water on the flames. Slowly, the fire softens. Slowly, space opens. In that space, you can look deeply. You can ask, what pain is fueling this anger? What fear lies beneath it? When you see clearly, compassion arises. You see that your anger is not only about the other person, but also about your own wounds. You see that the other person, too, carries wounds you cannot see. Their harsh words may come from their own suffering. Their cruelty may be the fruit of their own fear. This does not excuse harm, but it explains it. And in explanation, compassion can grow. There is a story of a monk who was insulted by a villager every day. Each day, the man hurled words like stones, hoping to provoke. But the monk remained calm. One day, the villager asked, "Why do you not respond? Do my words mean nothing to you?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, who does it belong to?" The man was silenced. The monk's peace did not come from suppression, but from understanding. He knew that anger offered could only harm if accepted. This wisdom is not only for monks. It is for you, for me, for anyone who feels the heat of anger. The next time you feel it rise, pause, breathe, see it clearly. Do not push it away, and do not feed it. Hold it like a parent holds a crying child, with tenderness, with patience, with care. Slowly, the child calms. Slowly, the fire softens. The paradox of anger is that when you face it with compassion, it transforms. The same energy that once burned can become strength for healing. The same fire that once destroyed can become light for understanding. Anger, when transformed, becomes clarity, courage, and compassion. Pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what anger are you holding right now? Can you see the wound beneath it? Can you breathe into it, soften it, transform it? Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And just as anger can be transformed into compassion, so too can every conflict hold the seed of peace. From this truth, we step into the final lessons, where suffering itself becomes the path to liberation, and the end of the journey opens into hope. When I was younger, I carried anger like armor. I thought it protected me, that it made me untouchable. But over time, I realized the armor was heavy. It cut into my skin, it weighed down my steps, and it kept love at a distance. This is the hidden cost of anger. It does not only hurt those we aim it at, it hurts us most of all. Think of the times you have been angry. Your heart races, your body tenses, your mind spins with thoughts of revenge or defense. Hours later, even when the moment has passed, the anger lingers like smoke after a fire. It clouds your judgment, steals your peace, and leaves you weary. We often believe anger gives us control, but in truth, it controls us emotionally. Anger isolates. It builds walls between people, walls too thick for understanding to pass through. It blinds us to the humanity of others, reducing them to enemies or obstacles. and it blinds us to our own humanity, reducing us to flames instead of light. Anger makes us forget who we are and who others are. But anger, when seen clearly, can become a teacher. It shows us where we are wounded, where we are afraid, where we are clinging. If we meet it with awareness, it becomes a doorway to healing. Instead of suppressing it or unleashing it, we hold it gently. We breathe with it. We listen to it. We let it reveal its roots. And once we see the roots, compassion can grow. Buddha once said that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The solution is not to deny the coal exists, but to release it. Releasing anger does not mean becoming passive. It means transforming fire into light. It means choosing understanding over vengeance, compassion over destruction. Imagine someone shouting at you. Your first impulse may be to shout back, to match fire with fire. But if you pause, if you breathe, if you look deeply, you may see that their words come from their own suffering. Perhaps they feel unheard. Perhaps they carry old wounds. Perhaps their anger has nothing to do with you. Seeing this, your own anger softens. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of adding to the fire, you offer water. There is a story of a monk and a robber. The robber threatened to kill the monk, demanding his possessions. The monk calmly replied, "You cannot kill me, for I was never truly born. You cannot steal from me, for I own nothing. But if you wish, here, take my clothes." The robber, stunned by the monk's fearlessness and compassion, dropped his weapon and wept. The monk's peace disarmed violence, not with force, but with understanding. This does not mean you allow harm to continue unchecked. Compassion includes wisdom. Sometimes compassion means setting boundaries, speaking truth, or walking away. But even then, you act not from hatred, but from clarity. Anger no longer drives you. Compassion guides you. Pause for a moment. Think of someone who has hurt you. Notice the anger that arises. Now look deeper. What pain might they carry? What fear hides behind their actions? You may not excuse them, but can you understand them? Can you let compassion soften your anger? When anger is transformed, relationships heal. The walls begin to crumble. Understanding grows. Where once there was only fire, now there is warmth. Where once there was only division, now there is connection. This is the power of compassion, born from awareness that even the darkest night ends. When the sun rises, and even anger, when understood, can give birth to peace. From here, we step into the final stage of our journey, where suffering itself becomes the teacher, and the path leads us toward hope, freedom, and light. When I was young, I thought suffering was a punishment. I believed that if life hurt, it was because I had done something wrong, or because the world was against me. But as I grew, I began to see suffering differently. Suffering is not a punishment. It is a teacher. It is the voice of life whispering lessons we cannot learn any other way. Without suffering, we would never question. Without suffering, we would never grow. The final truth of this path is that suffering itself can be transformed into wisdom. Compassion and freedom. The pain of suffering is undeniable. Loss breaks the heart. Illness weakens the body. Betrayal shatters trust. Fear paralyzes the mind. We do not need to pretend suffering is pleasant. It is not. It is heavy, sharp, relentless. It makes us cry in the night and doubt in the day. And yet, within suffering lies the seed of awakening. Just as the lotus rises only from muddy water, awakening rises only from the mud of pain. Emotionally, suffering opens us. It strips away illusions, exposing what we thought was solid. It humbles us, reminding us that control is an illusion, permanence a dream. It softens us, reminding us that all beings suffer, that none of us are alone. When we touch our own suffering deeply, we touch the suffering of others. Compassion is born. The solution is not to run from suffering, but to turn toward it with awareness. To ask, what is this pain teaching me? If you lose someone you love, suffering teaches you to cherish love more deeply. If you face failure, suffering teaches you humility and resilience. If you face fear, suffering teaches you courage. Each wound, when met with awareness, becomes a doorway. Each tear, when accepted, becomes a cleansing rain. There is a story of a woman who lost her only child. She went to the Buddha, weeping, begging him to bring the child back. The Buddha told her, "Bring me a mustard seed from a household untouched. By death, and I will heal your grief." The woman searched every home in the village, but in each she found death had visited. She returned empty-handed, but with new eyes. She realized her suffering was not hers alone. In her grief, compassion for all who suffer was born. Her pain became her awakening. Suffering does not end by denying it or drowning in it. It ends by transforming it. Like fire, suffering can burn or it can give light. The choice lies in how we meet it. With awareness, suffering becomes teacher. With compassion, suffering becomes connection. With wisdom, suffering becomes liberation. Pause. For a moment, think of the suffering you carry now. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of saying, "This should not be," say, "This is, and I will learn." Notice how the question itself softens the weight. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And your suffering, too, carries the seed of dawn. The journey we have taken together is long. We have seen the illusion of self dissolve into flow. We have seen impermanence turn from enemy into teacher. We have seen anger soften into compassion, control surrender into trust, clinging open into freedom. At each step, the path has led us deeper, not away from suffering, but through it, until we could see its hidden gift. The ending is not really an ending. It is a beginning. The beginning of living with awareness. The beginning of loving without fear. The beginning of trusting the flow. The beginning of seeing yourself not as broken, but as whole. So take a breath. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Notice the life moving through you, fragile and precious. Let gratitude fill you, not because life is perfect, but because it is fleeting. Not because it is without pain, but because even pain carries wisdom. Not because you control it, but because you are part of it. This is the final lesson. You do not need to escape life to be free. You only need to see it clearly. Freedom is not somewhere else. It is here in this breath, in this step, in this moment. Pause one last time. Ask yourself, if I live as though the cup is already broken, if I love as though every moment is my last, if I trust as though life itself carries me, what kind of life will I live? The answer is yours to discover. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And now, as you walk forward, know this. The sun is already rising within you. When I think of the long path of life, I see it like a mountain trail. At the bottom, we walk with heavy loads. Our fears, our clinging, our anger, our illusions. Each step feels steep. Each burden weighs us down. But as we keep walking, as we learn to let go piece by piece, the load grows lighter. The trail is still long, but the view begins to open. We see further. We breathe easier. We realize we were never climbing to escape the mountain. We were climbing to see it more clearly, to see that the mountain itself is sacred, just as it is. The pain of life does not vanish when we awaken. Sorrow still comes. Loss still cuts. Fear still whispers. But awareness transforms how we hold them. Instead of being crushed, we bow. Instead of being chained, we walk freely. Instead of seeing suffering as punishment, we see it as path. The very wounds we once cursed become the openings through which light enters. Emotionally, this shift changes everything. You no longer live in fear of impermanence because you see it as the teacher of gratitude. You no longer drown in anger because you see the suffering beneath it. You no longer grasp for control because you trust the flow of life. You no longer cling because you cherish instead. You no longer see yourself as a separate self, but as part of the vast whole. This is not a fantasy. It is a way of living available in each breath. The solution is not a grand secret. It is simple presence. Be here, be awake. Breathe, notice, let go. Begin again. Each time you forget, return. Each time you fall, rise. Each time you suffer, learn. The path is not perfection. The path is practice. And every step on it is already freedom. There is a story of a student who asked his teacher, "What is enlightenment?" The teacher replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The student frowned. "Is it that simple?" The teacher smiled. "Yes, but simple is not easy. Enlightenment is not about escaping life. It is about living it fully, without illusion, without clinging, without division. It is about drinking tea as if the cup is already broken. It is about walking as if each step is sacred. It is about breathing as if each breath is a miracle. Pause for a moment. Feel your breath. Feel your body. Notice the sounds around you. Notice the thoughts passing through. All of this is life. All of this is fleeting. All of this is precious. The conclusion of this journey is not an ending. It is an invitation. An invitation to live with awareness, to love with openness, to trust the flow, to transform suffering into wisdom, to see the wholeness that was always here. You may still ask, but how do I begin? Begin small. One breath, one step, one moment of awareness in the middle of your busy day, one choice to soften instead of harden, one act of kindness instead of anger. Each small act is a seed, and each seed grows. In time, the garden of your life will bloom with peace. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And the sun is already rising in you, in your breath, in your awareness, in your heart. You do not need to wait for another day, another life, another chance. Freedom is here. Hope is here. Peace is here. So walk gently. Love deeply. Breathe fully. And when suffering comes, as it always will, bow to it as a teacher. Ask it what it has to show you. And then keep walking, lighter than before, freer than before, more alive than before. This is the final gift of the path. Not escape, but presence. Not perfection, but freedom. Not someday, but now. Even the darkest night ends when the sun rises. And now, as this journey closes, may you carry with you the truth that the dawn is already breaking, and you are already walking in its light. Even the longest journey must end, and so too does this path we have walked together. We began with suffering, restless minds, endless clinging, hidden fears, and step by step, we discovered that each of these burdens also carried a key. Fear taught us trust. Anger taught us compassion. Clinging taught us love. Impermanence taught us gratitude. Even suffering itself, once seen clearly, revealed wisdom hidden within. The conclusion is simple yet profound. Freedom is not found in escaping life, but in living it fully. Not by grasping, but by letting go. Not by dividing, but by seeing wholeness. Not by fighting, but by flowing. Every breath, every step, every moment can be a doorway to peace. If we enter it with awareness, remember this truth. You do not need to wait for tomorrow to be free. Freedom is here, in this breath. Peace is here, in this moment. Hope is here, in your own heart. You already carry the light you seek. So walk gently, love deeply, forgive quickly, breathe fully, and when suffering visits, welcome it as a teacher, then let it go as a friend. The darkest night always ends, and the sun always rises. Let that rising sun remind you that no matter how heavy the path has been, there is always a new dawn waiting, God. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a new way of living with awareness, with compassion, with trust. And in that way of living, you will find not only freedom for yourself, but also light for others. May you carry this truth like a lamp in your hands. May it guide you through darkness. May it warm you in the cold. May it remind you always that even amidst suffering, joy is possible. And now, as we close, pause for a moment. Take a breath. Feel it rise, feel it fall. That breath is life itself. That breath is enough. That breath is freedom. The journey is complete. The dawn has arrived. Walk forward in peace.